The most profound secret in Hades 2 has been staring us in the face from the first moment we meet our mentor.
You had an audience with the three Fates. Your incantation from so many nights ago must have taken effect. Hermes indicated they're in good spirits, but shall be continuing their leave. Well done drawing them out, nevertheless.
Thank you, Headmistress. I get the impression that they sought me more so than the other way around, but at least we know they're safe. They also mentioned you.
They did they? In what capacity?
They said you've... well, is there someplace more private where we can discuss this, do you think?
Let's to the springs. You've earned the rest. And we can sit and talk about what's on your mind, and theirs.
Just right.
Ah, but that's not bad. So, what do the three weaving sisters know of me then, You were about to say?
They told me... I believe the phrase they used was you had pulled some strings. They didn't elaborate, but suggested I ask you about it.
Pulled strings. I know full well what they meant. But to this point I was uncertain whether they did. Let me twist your question back. What do you suppose they implied?
I got the sense they felt that you had altered their designs somehow. Pulling strings, changing their weavings, and not in a small way either, but I merely guess.
You don't merely anything, Melinoë. Well, if those three already know my past, you ought to know it too. And 'tis easier to explain, I suppose, if you look upon me as I am.
Headmistress, what? You're beautiful. But what is this? I don't understand. Some trick you're playing, or some glamour, or...?
No. The trick is when the veil is on. Look upon me, and do not avert your eyes. I know those eyes better than you.
How is this possible? Who are you?
When I was a mere babe, I washed up on the bank of the Hecate, with naught but moonlight to guide me. Selene looked out for me, informed me that the Titan Chronos took my family, and that I alone escaped. Thus, I trained.
You trained for the task? Death to Chronos. You attempted all of that before I did?
Before is not entirely correct. I was a capable student, but very raw. Vengeance was my headmistress. And one night I found the wretch, spewed every curse that I knew, and descended into the abyss of his subconscious.
But I had you to teach me to descend to the abyss of the subconscious. You mean to say you figured it out entirely on your own? That's impossible.
Speaking from experience, I beg to differ. But at any rate, something did go awry. Time and nightmare fused, and I discovered I was someplace else. I sought the end of time, but had arrived somewhere closer to the beginning.
And then you lived, for eons, waiting for the weavings of the Fates, and me, for a second chance. Headmistress, Gods.
I dared not tamper with the Fates' designs more than was strictly needed. In this form, I ingratiated myself to your father and mother. Became handmaiden to the queen, in fact.
In ancient Orphic traditions, Melinoë and Hecate were sometimes understood as aspects of the same divine principle, different faces of the goddess who ruled over transitions, boundaries, and the spaces between worlds. Supergiant Games has taken this mythic ambiguity and transformed it into narrative revelation, using the flexibility of ancient stories to create something that feels both surprising and inevitable. As we journey through this revelation together, we will see how it reflects the very structure of the game itself. Every death and rebirth that Melinoë experiences mirrors Hecate's own journey through time and failure. Every lesson learned, every skill mastered, every relationship forged becomes part of a larger pattern of growth and transformation that spans not just individual lives but entire timelines. This is also a story about the weight of knowledge and the burden of experience. Hecate carries within herself the memory of failure, the pain of watching everyone she loved fall to Chronos' power. Her strictness with Melinoë, her emotional distance, her seemingly impossible standards all take on new meaning when we understand that she is trying to prepare her younger self for challenges that she herself could not overcome. Yet it is also a story about hope persisting in the face of cosmic despair. By reaching back through time, by defying the fates themselves to give herself another chance, Hecate demonstrates a love that transcends individual existence. She risks everything not for personal gain, but to create a world where her family, her friends, and everyone she cares about might have a future worth living. The revelation comes in a moment of quiet conversation, not in the heat of battle or the climax of adventure. It unfolds through words spoken in darkness, confessions made when the weight of secrecy becomes too much to bear. This choice reflects the game's deeper understanding that the most important transformations often happen not in grand gestures, but in moments of vulnerable honesty. As Hecate finally reveals her true identity to Melinoë, as she explains the cosmic manipulation she has undertaken and the price she has paid for it, we witness something remarkable. The moment when a person finally stops running from their past and chooses instead to embrace it, to learn from it, and to use it as a foundation for something better. Tonight, we will trace this revelation through all its implications. We will see how it reframes the entire story of Hades II, how it connects to the broader themes of the Hades universe, and how it transforms familiar mythological figures into something deeper and more complex. We will explore the emotional resonance of a relationship that transcends normal categories, the philosophical implications of identity across time, and the narrative brilliance of a twist that makes us want to experience the entire story again with new understanding. This is a tale for the quiet hours when the boundary between sleep and waking grows thin, and the deepest truths reveal themselves in whispers rather than shouts. So settle in, let the darkness embrace you, and prepare to discover how sometimes the greatest secrets are hidden, not in distant places, but in the familiar faces of those we trust most. The moon rises over the realm of Hades II, casting silver light on shadows that have waited eons to be understood. Tonight, we follow that light wherever it leads, into the heart of Hecate's secret and the profound love that drives a goddess to rewrite fate itself. Chapter 1. The Moment of Revelation. The air crackles with unspoken tension. Melinoë, daughter of Chronos, stands before Hecate, her mentor, her guide, the one constant in her desperate quest to defy fate. But tonight, the familiar cadence of their lessons shifts. The goddess's eyes, usually pools of ancient wisdom, now shimmer with an unsettling light. "There is something you must know, child," Hecate begins, her voice a low thrum that vibrates in the very bones. "Something I have kept hidden until now." Melinoë, ever vigilant, ever wary, draws herself up. "What is it, my lady? A new trial? A hidden path?" Hecate shakes her head, a gesture that seems to carry the weight of millennia. This is beyond any trial, any path. It concerns the very fabric of your being, of our connection." The silence stretches, thick and suffocating. You can almost feel Melinoë's heart pounding in her chest, the anticipation a tangible thing. What could be so profound, so earth-shattering that it requires such... Hecate takes a step closer, her presence radiating power, a cosmic force barely contained. "Melinoë," she says, her voice softer now, laced with a hint of something. "Regret? I am not merely your teacher, I am more." The words hang in the air, pregnant with meaning. Melinoë frowns, confusion clouding her features. "More? I do not understand." Hecate sighs, a sound like the rustling of stars. "It is difficult to explain, to put into words the intricacies of time and fate. But know this, child, I have walked this path before. I have stood where you stand now, faced the same impossible odds." Melinoë's brow furrows deeper. The implications begin to dawn, a chilling realization creeping into her mind. Could it be? "No, it's impossible. You mean," she stammers, unable to articulate the unthinkable. Hecate's gaze intensifies, locking onto Melinoë's with unwavering resolve. "I am you, Melinoë. Or, rather, I am who you will become." The revelation hits Melinoë like a physical blow. She stumbles back, her hand flying to her mouth. Her mentor, her guide, the goddess who has guided her every step, is her future self. "But how?" she whispers, her voice barely audible. "Time, it doesn't. I don't understand." Hecate closes the distance between them, placing a gentle hand on Melinoë's arm. "Time is a river, child, ever flowing, ever changing. But some of us can navigate its currents, can see the bends and turns that lie ahead. But if you are me, if you know what is to come, why haven't you told me everything? Why the trials? Why the secrets?" Melinoë's voice rises, tinged with anger and betrayal. Hecate's eyes soften. "Because, my dear, knowing the destination does not guarantee the journey. The path you take, the choices you make, shape who you become. I cannot simply hand you victory, for it would be hollow, meaningless." "But, Chronos," Melinoë chokes on the name, the weight of her mission pressing down on her. You know how to defeat him. You know how to save my family." Hecate's expression darkens, a shadow passing over her face. "I know the cost of failure, child. I know the devastation that awaits if we are not careful." "Failure?" Melinoë echoes, her voice trembling. "You? You failed?" Hecate nods, her eyes filled with a pain that seems to stretch across eons. "I did. In another time, another place, I stood against Chronos, and I lost. The world I knew, the family I loved, all were consumed by his insatiable hunger." The weight of Hecate's words settles upon Melinoë, crushing her spirit. To learn that her mentor, her future self, had already faced this battle and been defeated, it is almost too much to bear. But if that is true, then what hope is there? Melinoë asks, her voice laced with despair. Hecate's grip on her arm tightens. "Hope, my dear, is not a gift to be given, but a fire to be kindled. I failed, yes, but failure is not the end. It is merely a lesson, a stepping stone on the path to eventual triumph." She pauses, her gaze piercing Melinoë's very soul. "I am here now, not to repeat the mistakes of the past, but to guide you, to help you forge a new future. A future where we succeed." Melinoë stares at Hecate, her mind reeling. The revelation is too much to process, the implications too vast to comprehend. Her mentor is her future self, a survivor of a failed timeline, burdened with the knowledge of what is to come. But as she looks into Hecate's eyes, she sees not just despair, but also determination. A fierce, unwavering resolve to change the course of history, to rewrite the destiny that has already been written. What do we do now?" Melinoë asks, her voice barely a whisper. Hecate smiles, a flicker of hope illuminating her face. "Now, my dear, we begin again. We learn from the past, we embrace the present, and we fight for the future. Together." The weight of the revelation begins to shift, replaced by a new sense of purpose, a renewed determination. Melinoë is not alone in this fight. She has her future self by her side, guiding her, protecting her, and helping her to become the hero she is destined to be. But how could Hecate, a goddess of such immense power, be defeated by Chronos? What events led to her failure, and what was the world like that was lost? And perhaps most importantly, if Hecate knows the path to victory, why can't she simply tell Melinoë what to do? Why the need for trials, for secrets, for this elaborate dance through time and fate? These questions linger in the air, unanswered, as Melinoë and Hecate stand together, ready to face the challenges that lie ahead. The truth has been revealed, but the journey has only just begun. The conversation continues, moving from the initial shock to a more analytical discussion. Melinoë, despite her initial disbelief, begins to pepper Hecate with questions. She wants to understand the mechanics of this temporal paradox, the rules that govern their unique connection. "How is this even possible?" she asks, her brow furrowed in concentration. "How can you exist both as my mentor and my future self? Does time not unravel itself?" Hecate sighs, a sound that seems to carry the echoes of countless timelines. "Time is more malleable than you believe, child. It is not a fixed line, but a tapestry woven with infinite threads. Some threads are stronger than others, some are more easily frayed, and some can be rewoven entirely. But who has the power to do such a thing?" Melinoë presses, her curiosity piqued. "To rewrite the fabric of time itself?" Hecate hesitates, a flicker of unease crossing her face. "There are forces at play beyond our comprehension, child. Entities that shape the very cosmos. The Fates, for example, hold immense power over destiny." "The Fates?" Melinoë repeats, her voice laced with suspicion. "They have always seemed distant, aloof. What role do they play in all of this?" "They are the weavers of fate, the spinners of destiny," Hecate explains. "They see all that was, all that is, and all that will be, and they are not always pleased when mortals, or even gods, attempt to interfere with their designs." "Interfere?" Melinoë asks, her eyes narrowing. "Do you mean they disapprove of what you are doing?" Hecate nods grimly. "They have accused me of pulling strings, of tampering with the natural order. They see my actions as a dangerous disruption to the balance of time. But if Chronos is allowed to run rampant, to consume all of existence, is that not a greater disruption?" Melinoë argues, her voice rising in defense of her mentor. "The Fates do not see things in such simplistic terms," Hecate replies. "They believe that every action has a consequence, that even the smallest change can have unforeseen repercussions. They fear that my attempts to alter the past may ultimately lead to an even greater catastrophe. But surely they can see that my intentions are good, Melinoë pleads, that I only want to save my family, to restore balance to the world. Hecate sighs again, her expression softening. They see your heart, child. They see your pain, your determination. But they also see the potential for darkness, the temptation to wield power for selfish ends. They are watching you, Melinoë. They are watching us both. The weight of the fates' scrutiny settles upon Melinoë, a heavy burden to bear. She is not just fighting Chronos, but also the very forces of destiny itself. So, what does this mean? Melinoë asks, her voice barely a whisper. Are we doomed to fail? Are we destined to be punished for our defiance? Hecate shakes her head, her eyes filled with a fierce resolve. No, child, we are not puppets of fate. We have the power to shape our own destiny, to defy the expectations of the gods themselves. But how? Melinoë asks, her voice laced with desperation. How can we possibly overcome such overwhelming odds? By understanding the mechanics of time, by learning to navigate its currents, by mastering the art of weaving our own threads into the tapestry of existence, Hecate replies. And by embracing the power that lies within you, Melinoë, the power to change the world. The conversation shifts again, focusing on the practical implications of Hecate's revelation. Melinoë is eager to learn more about her future self, to glean any advantage she can from Hecate's knowledge and experience. Tell me about the future, she pleads. Tell me about the world that I will inherit. What challenges will I face? What allies will I find? Hecate hesitates, a shadow crossing her face. The future is not fixed, child. It is a constantly shifting landscape shaped by countless choices and unforeseen events. I can show you glimpses of what may come, but I cannot guarantee that they will come to pass. But surely you can give me some guidance, Melinoë insists. Some hints about what to expect? Hecate sighs, relenting slightly. Very well. I can tell you that the path ahead will be fraught with peril. You will face enemies both mortal and divine, challenges that will test your strength, your courage, and your resolve. But I will also find allies, Melinoë interjects, her voice filled with hope. Friends who will stand by my side, who will help me to achieve my goals. Yes, child, Hecate confirms. You will find allies in unexpected places. Some will be familiar faces, others will be strangers who will become as close as family. And what about my family? Melinoë asks, her voice trembling slightly. Will I be able to save them? Will I be able to restore them to their former glory? Hecate's expression softens, her eyes filled with compassion. That is the question that drives us both, is it not? The hope that fuels our every action. I cannot promise you a happy ending, child, but I can promise you that I will do everything in my power to help you achieve your goals. Thank you, Melinoë whispers, her heart filled with gratitude. Thank you for everything. You are welcome, my dear, Hecate replies, her voice filled with warmth. Now, let us continue our training. There is much to learn, and little time to waste. The lessons resume, but with a new intensity, a new sense of urgency. Melinoë is more focused than ever, determined to master the skills she needs to face the challenges that lie ahead. And Hecate, in turn, is more demanding, pushing Melinoë to her limits, preparing her for the battles to come. But even as they train, the revelation of Hecate's true identity continues to weigh on Melinoë's mind. She can't help but wonder about the future that awaits her, the destiny that she is striving to create. And she can't help but wonder about the Hecate who stands before her. The future self who has already walked this path, who has already faced the horrors that lie ahead. What was her life like? What were her hopes and dreams? What were her regrets? These questions swirl in Melinoë's mind, unanswered, as she continues her training, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with Chronos. But as Hecate alluded, the timeline Melinoë is fighting to prevent isn't just some abstract hypothetical. It's past. It's a world she lived in, a world she lost. What exactly happened in that timeline? What horrors did she witness? What sacrifices did she make? And how does the knowledge of that failed future shape her interactions with Melinoë, her younger self? That's what we'll delve into next. Chapter 2, The Mechanics of Time and Fate. The revelation hangs heavy in the air, doesn't it? Hecate, not just a mentor, but Melinoë's own future self. But how is such a thing even possible? What strange alchemy allows one to exist, both as guide and guided, teacher and student, across the vast expanse of time? To understand, we must delve into the very mechanics of Hecate's power, her mastery over time itself. It's a power subtly displayed, woven into the fabric of the game, in her ability to reset encounters, to rewind mistakes, to offer another chance. These aren't mere gameplay conveniences, they are whispers of her true, awesome ability. Think about it. Hecate speaks of timelines, of possibilities branching and collapsing. She offers cryptic warnings, knowledge seemingly gleaned from experience, but experience that Melinoë herself has not yet lived. It all points to a single, breathtaking truth: Hecate can manipulate time. But why? Why would she need such power? The answer, as always, lies buried in the ashes of a fallen world, a world consumed by Chronos. The game hints at it, fragments of dialogue painting a grim picture. A world where the Titans, led by the insatiable Chronos, devoured not just Olympus, but the very essence of existence. A world where the gods fell, their light extinguished, leaving only darkness and despair. This was Hecate's original timeline, her reality. She stood against Chronos, wielding all her power, her cunning, her magic, but she failed. Utterly, devastatingly failed. Imagine the weight of that failure, the crushing knowledge that you were the last line of defense and you broke. Imagine watching everything you hold dear crumble into dust, knowing that your actions, your choices, led to this inevitable doom. That is the burden Hecate carries. That is the fire that fuels her every action, her every word. But how did she escape such a fate? The answer, it seems, lies in her unique connection to time itself. We know from the game that she was cast into a state of timelessness by Chronos, a punishment meant to imprison her for eternity. But Chronos, in his arrogance, underestimated Hecate's true nature. Timelessness for her was not a prison, but a crucible. It was in that void, outside the flow of time, that she learned to master it. Emerging at the dawn of creation, Hecate found herself with the power to rewrite her own history, to avert the catastrophe that had consumed her world. But there were limits, constraints imposed by the fates themselves. The fates, those ancient weavers of destiny, accuse Hecate of pulling strings, of interfering with the natural order. They see her actions as a violation, a dangerous tampering with the delicate fabric of fate. And they are not entirely wrong. Hecate, rewriting destiny. She's not merely nudging events, she's actively altering the course of history, creating new possibilities, new timelines. But why not simply erase Chronos from existence? Why not prevent the rise of the Titans altogether? The answer, perhaps, lies in the nature of time itself. It is not a river that can be easily diverted. It is a complex, interwoven tapestry, and pulling one thread can unravel the entire design. Hecate understands this. She knows that drastic changes can have unforeseen consequences, that even the best intentions can pave the road to ruin. So she takes a different approach. Instead of directly confronting Chronos, she chooses to train Melinoë to guide her younger self towards a different future. But here's the crucial point. She can't simply Melinoë what to do. The fates would not allow it. Direct intervention would be met with swift and severe consequences. Instead, she must guide Melinoë subtly, indirectly, planting seeds of knowledge, offering glimpses of the future, but always allowing her younger self to make her own choices. It's a delicate dance, a dangerous game. Hecate must walk a tightrope between intervention and non-interference, knowing that one wrong step could doom them all. Think of it as a cosmic game of chess, where Hecate is playing against both Chronos and the fates themselves. She must anticipate their moves, plan her strategies, and guide Melinoë towards victory without ever directly controlling her actions. This is why Hecate's instructions are often cryptic, her guidance seemingly contradictory. She's not trying to confuse Melinoë, she's trying to prepare her for all possibilities, to arm her with the knowledge and skills she needs to face whatever challenges lie ahead. But what of the original timeline, the world that was lost? Does it still exist? Is it merely a discarded possibility, a ghost of what might have been? The game offers tantalizing hints, suggesting that fragments of that fallen world still linger, echoes of a forgotten past seeping into the present. Perhaps some of the enemies Melinoë faces are not merely creatures of the underworld, but remnants of Chronos' corrupted reality. Imagine the horror of facing not just the monsters of the present, but the ghosts of a dead future. Imagine fighting against the very consequences of your own past failure. This adds a whole new layer of complexity to Melinoë's quest. She's not just fighting to save the future, She's fighting to redeem the past, to erase the stain of Hecate's defeat. And what of Hecate herself? How does she cope with the knowledge of that lost world, the constant reminder of her own failure? It must be an unbearable burden, a weight that threatens to crush her spirit. To know exactly what went wrong, to remember the faces of those who died, to feel the pain of their loss, and to be unable to simply erase it all. This is why Hecate is so strict, so demanding. She pushes Melinoë to her limits, not out of malice but out of desperation. She knows what's at stake, and she's determined to do everything in her power to prevent history from repeating itself. But there's also a deep sadness in Hecate's eyes, a weariness that speaks of countless battles fought and lost. She knows the odds are stacked against them, that the path ahead is fraught with peril. And yet, she perseveres. She continues to guide Melinoë, to offer her wisdom, to share her strength. Because even in the face of overwhelming odds, she refuses to give up hope. She believes in Melinoë, in her potential, in her ability to overcome the challenges that lie ahead. And perhaps, deep down, she also believes in her own ability to redeem herself, to finally erase the stain of her past failure. The mechanics of Hecate's time manipulation, therefore, are not just a plot device. They are a reflection of her inner turmoil, her struggle to reconcile her past with her present, her failure with her hope. It's a story of loss, of regret, of redemption. A story that resonates with us on a deeply personal level because we all carry the weight of our own past failures, our own regrets. We all wish we could go back in time and change things, to make different choices, to avoid the mistakes we made. But we can't. We can only learn from our past and use that knowledge to shape a better future. And that, perhaps, is the ultimate message of Hades II. That even in the face of overwhelming odds, even when burdened by the weight of our past, we can still find hope, we can still strive for a better future, and we can still find redemption. Now, consider the implications of all of this. Hecate's manipulation of time, her knowledge of a fallen world, her role as both mentor and future self, it all points to a connection, a thread that weaves its way back to the original. Could it be that Hecate, in her original timeline, existed within the world of the first game? Could the events of be not just a sequel, but a complete reimagining of that reality? Think about the visual differences, the tonal shifts, the vibrant colors, the more optimistic atmosphere. Could these be signs of a timeline diverging, a reality being reshaped by Hecate's actions? The theory holds that Hecate's failure against Chronos in her original timeline led to the events of perhaps the underworld we explored in the first game was a consequence of Chronos' influence, a corrupted reflection of what it should have been. And Zagreus, in his endless quest to escape the underworld, was unknowingly fighting against the remnants of that corrupted reality. His defiance, his determination, his refusal to accept his fate, perhaps these were all echoes of Hecate's own struggle against Chronos. This recontextualizes the entire narrative of the first game. It's no longer just a story about a son rebelling against his father. It's a story about a desperate attempt to escape a doomed reality. And Hecate, watching from the shadows, guiding Zagreus indirectly, was perhaps trying to prevent the same catastrophe from happening again. This also explains why the gods seem so different, so changed. They are not the same gods we knew in the first game. They are versions of themselves shaped by a different timeline, a different reality. The sequel therefore becomes not a continuation, but a complete reimagining of the world, a branching path in the grand tapestry of fate. But this raises a crucial question. If Hecate is from the first game's universe, and she's trying to prevent a similar catastrophe, why doesn't she just tell Melinoë everything? Why the secrecy, the cryptic guidance, the indirect approach? The answer, as we've already discussed, lies in the constraints imposed by the fates. But there's also another reason, a more personal one. Hecate understands that Melinoë must forge her own path, that she must learn from her own mistakes, that she must become strong in her own right. She can't simply hand her younger self the answers, she must allow her to discover them for herself. It's a difficult lesson, one that many mentors struggle with. To let go, to trust your student, to allow them to make their own mistakes, even when you know the consequences. But Hecate understands that true strength comes not from being told what to do, but from learning how to think for yourself, how to adapt to changing circumstances, how to overcome adversity. And that, perhaps, is the greatest gift she can give to Melinoë, the gift of self-reliance, the ability to forge her own destiny. But this brings us to an even more complex and emotionally charged question. What is it like for Hecate to train her younger self? What are the psychological implications of guiding someone who is, in essence, a younger version of yourself? This is where the story truly delves into the depths of the human psyche, exploring themes of self-forgiveness, the burden of experience, and the unique love that drives someone to help their former self grow. And that is precisely where we will venture next, as we unpack the profound emotional complexities of self-mentorship and the impossible standards Hecate sets for Melinoë. Chapter 3. The Weight of Failed Futures. Imagine carrying the weight of a world that never was. A world consumed, broken, a future irrevocably lost. This is the burden Hecate bears. It's etched into the very lines of her face, a subtle sorrow that underlies her ever-present wisdom. Think about it. She's not just a mentor, a guide, or even a goddess of magic. She is a living, breathing repository of a failed timeline. A timeline where Chronos reigned supreme, where the underworld fell, and hope withered into nothingness. And what's more, it all. This isn't some abstract philosophical concept, it's a visceral, emotional reality. She saw the faces of her friends, her allies, those she loved, consumed by the Titan's insatiable hunger. She felt the magic drain from the world, the light extinguish, the cold, crushing weight of defeat. And now, she stands before Melinoë, knowing the path that led to that ruin, knowing the choices that sealed their doom. But here's the agonizing paradox. She can't simply tell Melinoë what to do. She can't just hand her the solution on a silver platter. Why? Because time, as Hecate understands it, isn't a straight line. It's a tapestry, woven with threads of cause and effect, action and consequence. To directly interfere, to outright change the past, risks unraveling the entire fabric of reality. It could create paradoxes, alternate timelines far worse than the one she seeks to prevent. The fates, after all, accused her of pulling strings. It wasn't just a metaphor, she was literally rewriting destiny's fabric, thread by painstaking thread. To yank too hard, to force a knot where it doesn't belong, could destroy everything. So, she's forced to guide, to nudge, to subtly influence Melinoë's choices, hoping that she will learn from the mistakes of her future self without being explicitly told what those mistakes were. It's a delicate dance, a tightrope walk over the abyss of oblivion. Consider the emotional toll. Imagine watching your younger self, full of hope and determination, heading down a path you know leads to disaster. Imagine biting back the words of warning, the urgent pleas to turn back, knowing that those words could do more harm than good. It's a form of torture, a constant, gnawing anxiety. She sees her own flaws reflected in Melinoë, her own weaknesses, her own blind spots, and she knows with heartbreaking certainty the consequences of those shortcomings. This also explains her often austere demeanor, her seemingly impossible standards. She's not just being a demanding mentor. She's trying to forge Melinoë into something than she was, something capable of facing a threat that shattered her own reality. Think about the weight of that expectation. The pressure to not only succeed but to erase a future of utter annihilation. It's enough to crush anyone, goddess or not, and it's why she pushes Melinoë so hard. It's not malice. It's a desperate, almost frantic attempt to prepare her for the horrors to come. She's trying to instill in her the strength, the resilience, the cunning she herself lacked. But there's also a profound sense of isolation. She can't truly share the burden of her memories. She can't fully explain the stakes. She's alone in her knowledge, a solitary sentinel guarding against a darkness that only she has witnessed. This brings a new layer of understanding to her interactions. The cryptic advice, the veiled warnings, the seemingly random tests. They're all pieces of the puzzle, a puzzle that only Hecate fully understands. She's not just teaching Melinoë magic, she's teaching her how to survive. She's imparting the lessons learned from a war that spanned not just years, but entire epochs, a war that ended in absolute defeat. And perhaps deep down, there's a flicker of hope that Melinoë can succeed where she failed. That she can rewrite the future, not through direct intervention, but through the power of growth, of learning, of becoming something greater than the sum of her past selves. But consider the tragedy of it all. Knowing exactly what went wrong, reliving those moments of failure, yet being unable to simply tell her younger self how to fix it. It's like watching a play unfold, knowing the disastrous ending, but being powerless to change the script. This isn't just about Chronos. It's about the countless smaller battles, the strategic missteps, the alliances that crumbled, the moments of doubt and despair that ultimately led to their downfall. It's about the slow, agonizing erosion of hope, the gradual descent into darkness. And she has to watch it all play out again, knowing that every choice Melinoë makes brings her closer to either salvation or utter destruction. It's a burden that would break most beings, yet Hecate carries it with a stoic grace, a quiet determination that belies the pain within. Imagine the sleepless nights, the endless replays of past battles in her mind, the constant calculations of probabilities and possibilities. She's not just a goddess, she's a strategist, a tactician, a survivor haunted by the ghosts of her past. And it's not just the grand strategies that haunt her. It's the small, personal moments. The faces of fallen comrades, the sound of their screams, the weight of their loss. These are the memories that cling to her, the emotional scars that refuse to fade. She carries the weight of their sacrifices, the burden of their unfulfilled potential. She knows what they could have become, what they could have achieved, if only things had gone differently. And she sees echoes of them in Melinoë's allies, in the other denizens of the underworld. She sees the potential for greatness, but also the risk of repeating the same mistakes. This is why she's so invested in their training, why she pushes them to their limits. She's not just preparing them for the fight against Chronos, she's trying to prevent another tragedy, another world lost to darkness. And she knows that the fate of that lost world rests in many ways on her shoulders. If Melinoë fails, if Chronos triumphs again, it will be her fault. She will have failed to prevent the inevitable, failed to learn from her past mistakes. This is the true weight of her failed future. It's not just the loss of a world, but the potential loss of another. It's the fear that she is doomed to repeat her mistakes, that she is incapable of changing the course of destiny. But perhaps there's also a glimmer of hope that this time things will be different. That Melinoë, with her unique blend of determination and compassion, can succeed where she failed. That she can forge a new future, a future free from the shadow of Chronos. But that hope is fragile, easily extinguished by doubt and fear. And Hecate knows that she must guard it fiercely, nurture it carefully, and do everything in her power to ensure that it blossoms into a reality. Consider this. Every time Melinoë falls in battle, every time she returns to the crossroads, Hecate relives a piece of her own failure. She sees the same mistakes, the same vulnerabilities, the same weaknesses that led to her own downfall. And each time she has to find a way to guide Melinoë back on the right path, to help her learn from her mistakes, to become stronger and more resilient. It's a Sisyphean task, an endless cycle of hope and despair. But she perseveres, driven by the unwavering belief that Melinoë can succeed, that the future can be changed, and perhaps, deep down, she also hopes that by helping Melinoë, she can somehow redeem herself, can erase the stain of her past failure. Imagine the conversations they have, the subtle clues Hecate drops, the carefully worded advice. Each interaction is laden with meaning, with the weight of her past experiences. She has to be careful not to reveal too much, not to interfere too directly, but she also has to ensure that Melinoë is prepared for what lies ahead. It's a delicate balancing act, a constant tightrope walk. And it's not just about the big battles, the epic confrontations with Chronos' forces. It's about the small details, the subtle nuances of strategy and tactics. It's about understanding the enemy, anticipating their moves, and exploiting their weaknesses. Hecate has spent eons studying Chronos, analyzing his strengths and weaknesses, dissecting his strategies. She knows him better than anyone, and she's determined to use that knowledge to help Melinoë defeat him. But she also knows that Chronos is not the only threat. There are other forces at play, other powers vying for control of the underworld. And she has to prepare Melinoë for all of them. She has to teach her how to navigate the treacherous political landscape of the underworld, how to forge alliances, how to manipulate her enemies, and how to protect herself from betrayal. It's a complex and dangerous game, and Hecate knows that Melinoë must be prepared to play it. She has to be cunning, resourceful, and ruthless. She has to be willing to do whatever it takes to survive. And Hecate has to be willing to guide her, even if it means pushing her to the brink, even if it means forcing her to confront her own darkness, because she knows that the fate of the world depends on it. This isn't just about preventing a single defeat. It's about ensuring the survival of everything she holds dear. It's about protecting the balance of the cosmos, preserving the light in the face of overwhelming darkness. And she knows that she can't do it alone. She needs Melinoë, she needs her allies, she needs everyone to stand together against the coming storm. But she also knows that she has to lead the way, that she has to be the guiding light, the unwavering force that inspires them to fight. And she will, even if it means carrying the weight of a failed future on her shoulders, even if it means reliving the pain and suffering of her past. She will fight for the future, for the hope of a better tomorrow. Because she knows that even in the darkest of times, there is always a chance for redemption, a chance for renewal, a chance to rewrite the story of her life. And she believes that Melinoë is the key to that redemption, the key to unlocking a brighter future. She has to believe it, because if she doesn't, then all is lost. Think about the countless conversations they've shared, each carefully crafted word, each subtle inflection designed to steer Melinoë towards a future Hecate desperately hopes to see realized. Imagine the frustration when Melinoë stumbles, repeating the very errors that doomed Hecate's original timeline. The urge to scream, to intervene directly, must be almost unbearable. But she resists, knowing that true growth comes from within, from the painful process of learning from one's own mistakes. She can guide, she can nudge, but she can't force Melinoë to become the hero she needs to be. This is a love story in a way. A love for her younger self. A love for the potential that lies within her. A love that compels her to endure the pain of reliving her failures. All for the chance to see Melinoë triumph. It's a unique kind of love, one born of experience, of sacrifice, of the unwavering belief in the power of growth and change. It's a love that transcends time, that binds them together in a way that few others can understand. And it's a love that gives Hecate the strength to carry on, to face the darkness, to fight for a future that may never come to pass. But what if Hecate's understanding of the past is flawed? What if her memories are incomplete, distorted by time and trauma? What if she's inadvertently leading Melinoë down the wrong path? These are questions that linger in the shadows, questions that threaten to undermine everything she's working towards. And they're questions that Melinoë herself may begin to ask as she delves deeper into the mysteries of her own destiny. Consider the implications. If Hecate's memories are unreliable, then the entire foundation of their plan could crumble. They could be fighting the wrong enemy, pursuing the wrong goals, making all the same fatal mistakes again. The weight of that possibility is immense. It adds another layer of complexity to Hecate's burden, another source of anxiety and doubt. But she can't afford to dwell on those doubts. She has to trust her instincts, trust her memories, trust that she's doing everything she can to guide Melinoë towards the right path. And she has to be willing to adapt, to change course if necessary, to acknowledge her own fallibility and learn from her mistakes, because the fate of the world depends on it. But what if the very act of trying to prevent the past from repeating itself is what dooms them to repeat it? What if Hecate's intervention, however well-intentioned, is the very thing that sets in motion the events that lead to their downfall? This is the ultimate paradox, the cruel irony that haunts every time travel narrative. The attempt to change the past often ends up reinforcing it, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of doom. And it's a paradox that Hecate must confront. She has to consider the possibility that her actions are not saving the future, but condemning it. It's a terrifying thought, one that could shatter her resolve and lead her to despair. But she can't allow herself to succumb to that despair. She has to keep fighting, keep learning, keep adapting. Because even if she's doomed to fail, even if her efforts are ultimately futile, she has to try. She has to give Melinoë the best possible chance of success, even if that chance is slim. And perhaps, in the end, that's all that matters. The willingness to fight, the courage to face the darkness, the unwavering belief in the power of hope. Even if the future is uncertain, even if the past is immutable, the present is still within their control. And they can choose to make the most of it, to fight for what they believe in, to create a better world, even if it's only for a fleeting moment. But this journey, this desperate attempt to avert a catastrophic future, is not without its consequences. We've spoken of Hecate's burden, but what of the underworld itself? What price is exacted by these temporal manipulations? Because next, we explore the connections between Hades Iron 2 and the unsettling possibility that this isn't a sequel, but a complete reimagining of reality. Chapter 4. Connections to the original Hades. What if everything we thought we knew about the world of Hades was wrong? What if Hades II isn't simply a sequel, but something far more ambitious, a complete reimagining of reality itself? The revelation of Hecate's true identity throws a wrench into everything we understood about the first game, particularly the relationship between Zagreus and his father. Think about it. The original Hades was a self-contained story, a tale of rebellion, family, and breaking free from predetermined roles. Zagreus, the rebellious son, constantly defied his father's expectations, seeking a life beyond the underworld. Hades, the stern and unyielding ruler, seemed the immovable obstacle in his son's path. But what if their conflict was merely a symptom of a larger, unseen force at play? Now, consider Hecate's presence in Hades II. She's not just a mentor figure, she's Melinoë's future self, a being who has seen the consequences of Chronos' victory and is desperately trying to avert that catastrophic timeline. This changes everything. It suggests that the events of the first game, Zagreus' repeated attempts to escape, Hades' unwavering opposition, were all happening under the shadow of Hecate's influence, perhaps even orchestrated by her. But how could this be? How could a character seemingly absent from the first game exert such a profound influence? The answer, I believe, lies in the nature of time itself as portrayed in Hades II. Hecate exists outside of linear time, capable of manipulating its threads to achieve her goals. This suggests that she could have been subtly guiding events in the first game, nudging Zagreus along his path, influencing Hades' decisions, all in an attempt to prepare the way for Melinoë's eventual confrontation with Chronos. This theory gains further credence when we examine the visual and tonal differences between the two games. Hades was characterized by its vibrant, almost cartoonish art style, its fast-paced action, and its focus on personal relationships. Hades II, on the other hand, has a darker, more somber tone, a more intricate and mystical art style, and a greater emphasis on cosmic forces and ancient prophecies. These differences aren't merely aesthetic choices, they reflect a fundamental shift in the game's narrative focus. Hades was a story about family drama within the confines of the underworld. Hades II is a story about the fate of the entire cosmos, a battle against a primordial force that threatens to unravel reality itself. It's a change from rebellion to outright war. Could it be that the visual and tonal shifts are because we're seeing two different realities, two different timelines? One where Chronos was never defeated, and one where a desperate attempt to prevent this outcome is playing out in the form of Melinoë's quest. The original Hades, therefore, might be a glimpse into a world where Hecate's initial efforts failed, a world that Melinoë is now fighting to prevent. Think about the Olympian gods in the first game. They aided Zagreus in his escape attempts, granting him boons and offering encouragement. But what if their motives weren't entirely altruistic? What if they were also being manipulated by Hecate, unknowingly playing their parts in her grand scheme? What if their boons were not just gifts, but subtle alterations to the timeline, designed to steer Zagreus towards a specific outcome? The possibilities are staggering. The entire narrative of the first game could be reinterpreted through the lens of Hecate's time manipulation. Zagreus' repeated deaths and resurrections, his constant struggle against Hades, could all be seen as part of a larger, more complex plan, orchestrated by a being who exists outside of time's constraints. But if Hecate could manipulate events so easily, why didn't she simply prevent Chronos from escaping in the first place? Why did she allow Zagreus to go through so much suffering? The answer, I suspect, lies in the limitations of her power. Time manipulation, as portrayed in Hades II, isn't a simple matter of changing the past. It's a delicate and complex process, fraught with paradoxes and unintended consequences. Hecate may have been able to influence events, but she couldn't directly control them. She could nudge Zagreus in a certain direction, but she couldn't force him to follow a specific path. She could offer him boons, but she couldn't guarantee that he would use them effectively. And perhaps most importantly, she couldn't reveal her true identity to him for fear of creating a paradox that could unravel the entire timeline. This brings us back to the Fates' accusation that Hecate is pulling strings. They accuse her of interfering with destiny, of rewriting the very fabric of reality. But what if Hecate isn't simply interfering with destiny, but actively trying to create a better one? What if she's not just manipulating events for her own selfish purposes, but trying to save the cosmos from a terrible fate? The Fates, as we know, are the arbiters of destiny, the weavers of the threads of fate. They see time as a linear progression, a fixed and immutable path. Hecate, on the other hand, sees time as something more fluid, something that can be shaped and molded. This fundamental difference in perspective puts them at odds, making Hecate a threat to their authority. The original Hades presented a world of defined roles and expectations. Zagreus was expected to remain in the underworld, to follow in his father's footsteps, but he rebelled against that destiny, forging his own path and ultimately finding a measure of peace and understanding. Hades II, however, presents a world where destiny itself is up for grabs, where the very fabric of reality is at stake. This shift in focus elevates the stakes of the narrative, transforming Hades II from a simple sequel into a cosmic battle for the fate of existence. It also recontextualizes the events of the first game, casting them in a new and unexpected light. What seemed like a personal struggle between father and son now appears to be a small piece of a much larger puzzle, a puzzle that Hecate is desperately trying to solve. But what does this mean for the characters we grew to love in the first game? What role will Zagreus play in this new reality? Will he even remember the events of the first game, or will he be a completely different character, shaped by Hecate's manipulation of time? These are just some of the questions that arise when we consider the connection between Hades II and the original game. The revelation of Hecate's true identity has opened up a Pandora's box of possibilities, challenging our assumptions and forcing us to re-evaluate everything we thought we knew about the world of Hades. And if Hecate's actions are born from a place of failure, what exactly did that failure look like? What were the consequences of Chronos' victory in her original timeline? That's what we'll explore next, as we delve into the weight of failed futures and the emotional toll of carrying memories of a world lost. Before we dive deeper into this incredible journey, I'm curious, where in the world are you watching this from? Drop a comment below and let our global community know. And if you're finding this as mind-blowing as I am, hit that like button to help more people discover this story. Chapter 5. The Psychology of Self-Mentorship. Hecate, standing before Melinoë, is not merely a mentor. She is a mirror, reflecting a future burdened by knowledge and loss. But what does it truly mean to guide oneself, to shape a past you have already lived? It's a question that cuts to the heart of Hecate's seemingly contradictory behavior. Consider her strictness. It's not born of cruelty, but of desperate urgency. Hecate knows the cost of failure. She has walked the desolate path of Chronos' triumph. Every mistake, Melinoë makes echoes with the screams of a fallen world, a world Hecate is trying with every fiber of her being to prevent. This creates a pressure cooker of expectation, an environment where perfection feels like the only acceptable outcome. But is this truly the best way to foster growth? Or does it simply breed fear and resentment? Then there's her distance. It's a carefully constructed wall built brick by brick from the trauma of her own experiences. To become too close to Melinoë, to truly see her as herself, would be to relive the agonizing process of failure all over again. It's a self-protective mechanism, a way to safeguard her sanity in the face of unbearable knowledge. Yet, this distance also prevents genuine connection, hindering Melinoë's ability to fully trust and understand her mentor's motives. It's a paradox, isn't it? The very act of trying to protect Melinoë ultimately pushes them further apart. And what about those impossible standards? They are not simply arbitrary demands, they are reflections of Hecate's own self-loathing. She sees her past self, her younger self, as the root of all that went wrong. By demanding perfection from Melinoë, she is, in essence, demanding it from herself. It's a form of self-punishment, a constant reminder of the mistakes she made, the opportunities she squandered. But can anyone truly live up to such expectations? Or does this constant striving for unattainable perfection ultimately lead to burnout and despair? Perhaps the most poignant aspect of Hecate's self-mentorship is the theme of self-forgiveness. How can she guide Melinoë towards a brighter future when she herself is haunted by the ghosts of her past? How can she impart wisdom when she is constantly questioning her own judgment? The answer, it seems, lies in accepting her imperfections, in recognizing that failure is not the end, but an opportunity for growth. This is a lesson Hecate struggles to learn, but it is a lesson she desperately wants to impart to Melinoë. The burden of experience weighs heavily on Hecate's shoulders. She carries the memories of countless timelines, each one a variation on a theme of failure and despair. She knows exactly what went wrong, the precise moments where the tide turned against her, and yet she cannot simply tell Melinoë how to fix it. To do so would be to rob her of the opportunity to learn and grow, to forge her own path. It would also risk creating a paradox, altering the timeline in unpredictable and potentially catastrophic ways. So she is forced to guide Melinoë through cryptic clues and veiled pronouncements, hoping that her younger self will eventually piece together the puzzle. It's a frustrating and agonizing process, but it's the only way to ensure that Melinoë becomes the strong and capable goddess she needs to be. It's a testament to Hecate's faith in her younger self, a belief that even in the face of overwhelming odds, Melinoë is capable of achieving what she herself could not. But let's delve deeper into this unique relationship. Imagine the emotional tightrope Hecate walks every single day. She is both the teacher and the student, the mentor and the mentee. She is simultaneously trying to guide Melinoë while also reliving her own past. It's a dizzying and disorienting experience, one that requires immense strength and resilience. Think about the times you've looked back on your own past, perhaps with regret or embarrassment. Now imagine having to not only confront those past mistakes, but also actively guide your younger self through them. It's a recipe for emotional overload, a constant barrage of self-criticism and second-guessing. And yet, Hecate perseveres. She does so because of a love that transcends time and space. It's not a romantic love, but a deeper, more profound connection. It's the love of a parent for their child, the love of a mentor for their student, the love of oneself for their past and future selves. This love is what drives Hecate to help Melinoë grow, to become the best version of herself. It's a love that is selfless and unconditional, a love that is willing to sacrifice everything for the sake of another. It's a love that is born of hope, a belief that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility of redemption. But let's not romanticize this relationship too much. There are moments when Hecate's strictness crosses the line, when her distance becomes cold and uncaring. There are times when she doubts Melinoë's abilities, when she questions whether her younger self is truly up to the task. These moments are a reflection of Hecate's own insecurities and fears. They are a reminder that even the most powerful of goddesses are still human, still vulnerable to the same doubts and anxieties that plague us all. It's in these moments that the true complexity of Hecate's character, the internal struggles that she battles every single day. And it's in these moments that we begin to understand the true depth of her sacrifice. She is not simply guiding Melinoë towards a brighter future. She is also confronting her own past, learning to forgive herself for her mistakes, and ultimately finding peace within herself. This journey of self-discovery is not easy. It's a long and arduous process filled with setbacks and challenges. But it's a journey that is ultimately worth taking, for it leads to a greater understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. So, as you watch Hecate guide Melinoë through the dangers of the underworld, remember that she is not simply a mentor. She is a reflection of ourselves, a reminder that we are all capable of growth and change, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. She is a testament to the power of love, the importance of self-forgiveness, and the enduring hope that even in the darkest of times, there is always the possibility of a brighter future. Consider too the immense pressure Hecate faces, knowing the future yet being unable to directly alter the past. It's a cruel paradox. She possesses the knowledge to prevent catastrophe, yet she's bound by the very fabric of time, forced to act as a guide rather than a savior. This limitation fuels her intensity, her seemingly harsh methods. Imagine knowing a loved one is about to make a devastating mistake, but being powerless to stop them directly. You could only offer cryptic warnings, hoping they decipher the message in time. That is Hecate's existence. Her strictness, then, isn't merely a personality quirk, it's a desperate attempt to circumvent the constraints placed upon her. Each harsh word, each demanding task, is a calculated risk, a gamble that Melinoë will interpret the instruction correctly and avoid the pitfalls Hecate remembers so vividly. The weight of countless failed timelines rests upon her shoulders, fueling a relentless drive for perfection. But this approach is fraught with danger. By withholding crucial information, Hecate risks alienating Melinoë, fostering resentment and distrust. The very act of trying to protect her younger self could ultimately push her away, leading to the very outcome Hecate seeks to avoid. It's a delicate balancing act, a constant struggle to reconcile the need for guidance with the importance of free will. And what about the emotional toll on Hecate herself? To constantly relive past failures, to witness her younger self make the same mistakes, must be an agonizing experience. She is forced to confront her own shortcomings, her own vulnerabilities over and over again. This constant self-reflection can lead to self-doubt, even self-loathing. It's a heavy burden to bear, especially when the fate of the world rests upon her shoulders. The distance she maintains is another layer of this complex dynamic. By keeping Melinoë at arm's length, Hecate protects herself from the emotional pain of potential failure. She avoids forming too strong of an attachment, knowing that the possibility of loss is ever present. This emotional detachment can be misinterpreted as coldness or indifference, but it's ultimately a defense mechanism, a way to cope with the immense pressure she faces. However, this distance also hinders the development of a genuine connection between mentor and mentee. It prevents Melinoë from fully understanding Hecate's motivations, from appreciating the depth of her sacrifice. Without this connection, trust erodes and the effectiveness of Hecate's guidance diminishes. The impossible standards Hecate sets are yet another manifestation of her internal struggles. She demands perfection from Melinoë because she demands it from herself. She sees her younger self as the key to preventing future catastrophe, and therefore she must be flawless. This relentless pursuit of perfection is both admirable and destructive. It pushes Melinoë to strive for greatness, but it also creates an environment of constant pressure and anxiety. Ultimately, Hecate's self-mentorship is a complex and multifaceted relationship, fraught with contradictions and challenges. It's a testament to the power of love, the importance of self-forgiveness, and the enduring hope that even in the face of overwhelming adversity, there is always the possibility of a brighter future. But it is also a cautionary tale about the dangers of perfectionism, the burden of experience, and the importance of genuine connection. And let's not forget the inherent strangeness of the situation. Imagine advising your younger self, knowing all the mistakes you're about to make. The urge to intervene directly must be overwhelming. Yet, Hecate understands that Melinoë must forge her own path, learn from her own experiences. She can only guide, not control. This creates a fascinating dynamic of veiled instruction and cryptic advice. Hecate speaks in riddles, offering clues rather than answers. She challenges Melinoë to think for herself, to draw her own conclusions. This approach can be frustrating for Melinoë, who often craves direct answers, but it's ultimately a more effective way of fostering growth and independence. Hecate's strictness can also be seen as a form of tough love. She knows that the challenges Melinoë faces are immense, and she wants to prepare her for the worst. She pushes her limits, testing her resolve and forcing her to confront her own weaknesses. This can be painful, but it's ultimately necessary for Melinoë to become the strong and capable goddess she needs to be. The distance Hecate maintains is also a way of protecting Melinoë from the full weight of her knowledge. She shields her from the horrors of the past, the countless failed timelines that haunt her memories. This protection is not without its drawbacks, as it prevents Melinoë from fully understanding the stakes. But it's ultimately a compassionate act, a way of allowing her younger self to grow and develop without being burdened by the weight of the world. The impossible standards Hecate sets are, in part, a reflection of her own self-doubt. She questions whether she is worthy of guiding Melinoë, whether she is capable of preventing future catastrophe. This self-doubt manifests as an unrelenting drive for perfection, a constant striving to be better, to do better. In essence, Hecate's relationship with Melinoë is a microcosm of the human experience. It's a story about love, loss, forgiveness, and the enduring search for meaning. It's a reminder that we are all capable of growth and change, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. But beyond the immediate challenges of training Melinoë, consider the long-term implications of Hecate's actions. She is not simply trying to avert a single catastrophe. She is attempting to rewrite the very fabric of time, to create a better future for all. This is an immense responsibility, one that carries with it the potential for unintended consequences. What if her actions inadvertently create a new and even more terrible future? What if her attempts to manipulate fate ultimately lead to her own destruction? These are the questions that haunt Hecate's every decision. She is constantly walking a tightrope, balancing the need for action with the potential for disaster. And what about the ethical implications of her actions? Is it right for her to interfere with the natural flow of time? Does she have the right to alter the destinies of others? These are complex moral questions that have no easy answers. Hecate grapples with these questions constantly, weighing the potential benefits against the potential harms. Ultimately, Hecate's story is a testament to the power of choice. She has the power to change the future, but she must choose wisely. Her decisions will have far-reaching consequences not only for herself and Melinoë, but for the entire world. This brings us to a critical point. Hecate's perspective is fundamentally skewed by her knowledge of the future. She sees events not as they are unfolding, but through the lens of their ultimate outcome. This can lead to misinterpretations, to a failure to appreciate the nuances of the present moment. She might, for instance, overemphasize certain events that she knows will have significant consequences, while overlooking other factors that are equally important. This can create a distorted view of reality, leading to flawed decision-making. Furthermore, Hecate's knowledge of the future can create a sense of fatalism. She might believe that certain events are inevitable, regardless of her actions. This can lead to apathy, to a feeling that there is no point in trying to change things. Overcoming this sense of fatalism is one of Hecate's greatest challenges. She must learn to balance her knowledge of the future with a belief in the power of free will. She must recognize that even though she knows what happened, it doesn't mean that it happened. The future is not set in stone. It is constantly being shaped by the choices we make in the present. This understanding is crucial for Hecate to effectively guide Melinoë. She must empower her younger self to make her own choices, to forge her own path. She cannot simply dictate the future. She must instead inspire Melinoë to believe in her own ability to change things for the better. The question remains, can Hecate truly separate her past self from the Melinoë standing before her? Or is she doomed to project her own failures and regrets onto her younger counterpart? This is the central tension that drives their relationship, the core of the psychological drama that unfolds with each passing cycle. But this intimate dance between past and future is only one layer of the onion. Peel it back, and you find the raw, aching vulnerability of a goddess who has seen too much, lost too much, and carries the weight of a broken world on her shoulders. How does one teach hope when they themselves are teetering on the edge of despair? How does one inspire courage when their own heart is heavy with fear? The answer, perhaps, lies in the very act of teaching itself. By guiding Melinoë, Hecate is forced to confront her own demons, to re-examine her past mistakes, and to find new meaning in her suffering. The process of mentorship becomes a form of therapy, a way for Hecate to heal her own wounds while simultaneously shaping the future. It's a beautiful, albeit tragic, paradox. Hecate, the goddess of crossroads, finds herself at the ultimate crossroads, not just of time and fate, but of self-discovery. And the path she chooses will determine not only the fate of the underworld, but the fate of her own soul. But as we delve into Hecate's psyche, another question arises. Is she truly acting out of altruism, or is there a degree of self-interest at play? Is she genuinely trying to save the world, or is she simply trying to rewrite her own past, to erase the stain of her previous failures? The answer, of course, is likely a combination of both. Hecate is a complex character, driven by a multitude of motivations. She is undoubtedly concerned about the fate of the world, but she is also deeply invested in her own personal redemption. This duality adds another layer of complexity to her relationship with Melinoë. Is she guiding her younger self out of genuine love and concern, or is she simply using her as a tool to achieve her own selfish goals? The line between these two motivations is often blurred, making it difficult to discern Hecate's true intentions. Ultimately, it is up to Melinoë to decide whether she trusts Hecate's guidance. She must weigh the potential benefits against the potential risks, and she must ultimately forge her own path, regardless of what her mentor tells her. The burden of choice, as always, rests upon her shoulders. And it's here, at this crossroads of self-interest and selfless devotion, that we find the true heart of Hecate's character. It is in the tension between her desire for personal redemption and her genuine concern for the fate of the world that the depth of her humanity, her vulnerability, and her ultimate strength. But this exploration of Hecate's psyche raises a final, perhaps unsettling question. To what extent is Melinoë simply a puppet, a vessel for Hecate's own desires and ambitions? Is she truly an independent agent, or is she merely a reflection of her mentor's will? This is a question that the game itself seems to grapple with. leaving the answer ambiguous and open to interpretation. On the one hand, Melinoë possesses her own unique personality, her own desires, and her own motivations. She is not simply a carbon copy of Hecate. On the other hand, she is undeniably influenced by her mentor's guidance. She learns from her experiences, she internalizes her values, and she ultimately strives to fulfill her expectations. To what extent is this influence a form of manipulation? To what extent is it simply the natural process of mentorship? The answer, like so many things in the world of Hades II, is not simple. Melinoë is both an independent agent and a product of her environment. She is shaped by her experiences, both positive and negative, and she ultimately chooses her own destiny. But the shadow of Hecate's influence always looms large, reminding us that even in the most independent of souls, the echoes of the past mythological foundations and ancient wisdom. Hecate, then, is not simply a character, but a keystone, arching over the entire narrative structure. Her revelation is more than just a plot twist, it's a key unlocking the deeper chambers of Supergiant's design. But to truly grasp the implications, we must delve into the ancient roots from which her character springs. The mythology surrounding Hecate is notoriously murky, a swirling mist of contradictory accounts and interpretations. Unlike the Olympian gods, with their relatively fixed roles and narratives, Hecate remains protean, shifting in form and function across different eras and regions. She is the goddess of crossroads, of liminal spaces, of magic, and of the night. A mistress of transitions, existing on the threshold between worlds. And it is precisely this ambiguity that Supergiant so brilliantly exploits. They don't attempt to impose a singular, definitive interpretation of Hecate. Instead, they embrace the inherent mystery, weaving it into the very fabric of the game's narrative. This is not a story that provides easy answers. It's a story that invites us to contemplate the unknowable. Consider the Orphic tradition, a mystical school of thought that flourished in ancient Greece, emphasizing the cyclical nature of existence, the interconnectedness of all things, and the power of ritual and transformation. Within this tradition, Hecate is often linked to Melinoë, not merely as mentor to student, but as different aspects of the same divine principle. Melinoë, herself a figure shrouded in obscurity, is described as a daughter of Persephone, a chthonic deity associated with ghosts and nightmares. Some accounts even portray her as having two faces, one light and one dark, reflecting her dual nature as both a bringer of comfort and a harbinger of dread. Does this sound familiar? Supergiant cleverly draws upon this ambiguity, presenting Hecate as a future, more experienced version of Melinoë, a figure who has traversed the crossroads of time and emerged with a profound understanding of the cycles of death and rebirth. She is both mentor and mentee, teacher and student, the past and the future intertwined in an intricate dance of self-discovery. But how does this mythological foundation inform the game's central themes? What does it mean for Hecate to be the goddess of crossroads, not just in a spatial sense, but in a temporal one? Think about it. A crossroads represents a point of decision, a moment where multiple paths diverge. In Hades II, time itself becomes the ultimate crossroads, a point where Hecate can manipulate the threads of fate, altering the course of history and guiding Melinoë towards a different future. Her power over time is not simply a matter of reversing events or skipping ahead. It's about subtly influencing the choices that Melinoë makes, nudging her down a different path, and ultimately shaping her destiny. The fates accuse her of pulling strings, and this is not merely a metaphorical accusation. Hecate is literally rewriting the fabric of destiny, weaving a new tapestry of possibilities. But with such power comes a terrible burden. Hecate carries the weight of countless failed futures, the memories of worlds lost to Chronos' tyranny. She knows the precise moments where things went wrong, the decisions that led to ruin, and the sacrifices that were made in vain. And yet, she cannot simply tell Melinoë how to fix it. To do so would be to violate the very principles of free will and self-discovery that she seeks to uphold. Instead, she must guide Melinoë, subtly influencing her choices, allowing her to learn from her own mistakes, and ultimately forging her own path to victory. This is the essence of Hecate's self-mentorship. It's not about imposing her will upon her younger self. It's about empowering her to become the best version of herself, even if that means making mistakes along the way. It's about trusting that Melinoë has the potential to surpass her own limitations, to overcome the obstacles that stand in her path, and to ultimately create a better future for herself and for the world. The game is a masterclass in narrative layering, constantly inviting us to reconsider our assumptions and to delve deeper into the underlying mythology. The more we understand the ancient roots of these characters and their relationships, the richer and more meaningful the story becomes. Consider the recurring motif of the moon, a symbol often associated with Hecate. The moon is a celestial body that reflects the light of the sun, illuminating the darkness and revealing hidden truths. In Hades II, the moon serves as a constant reminder of Hecate's presence, a guiding light in the shadows, a symbol of her wisdom and her power. And what about the act of weaving, another symbol closely associated with Hecate? Weaving is the process of interlacing threads to create a tapestry, a complex and intricate design that is greater than the sum of its parts. In Hades II, Hecate is constantly weaving the threads of time, manipulating the choices that Melinoë makes, and shaping the destiny of the world. But the tapestry she creates is not predetermined. It's a collaborative effort, a partnership between Hecate and Melinoë, a dance between the past and the future. Each choice that Melinoë makes adds a new thread to the tapestry, altering the design and creating new possibilities. The game is a testament to the power of mythology, not as a collection of static stories, but as a living, breathing tradition that continues to evolve and adapt to new contexts. Supergiant doesn't simply retell ancient myths. They reimagine them, reinterpret them, and infuse them with new meaning and relevance. They understand that mythology is not about providing definitive answers. It's about asking profound questions, about exploring the complexities of human existence, and about grappling with the mysteries of the universe. And in Hades II, they invite us to join them on this journey of discovery, to delve into the shadows and to uncover the hidden truths that lie beneath the surface. But the brilliance of Supergiant storytelling doesn't stop there. It extends to the very mechanics of the game itself. The roguelike structure, with its endless cycle of death and rebirth, becomes a metaphor for Hecate's manipulation of time, a reflection of her constant efforts to guide Melinoë towards a better future. Each time Melinoë falls in battle, she is reborn, armed with new knowledge and experience. She learns from her mistakes, adapts to the challenges she faces, and gradually grows stronger and more capable. This process of repeated failure and incremental progress mirrors Hecate's own journey, her countless attempts to alter the course of history and to prevent Chronos from plunging the world into darkness. The game transforms mechanical repetition into narrative symbolism, making the player's persistence an integral part of the story's thematic fabric. You, the player, are not simply controlling Melinoë. You are participating in Hecate's grand experiment, her attempt to rewrite destiny and to create a better future for all. And this is where the true genius of Hades II lies. It's not just a game about defeating enemies and collecting loot. It's a game about self-discovery, about the power of perseverance, and about the importance of embracing the cyclical nature of existence. It's a game that invites us to reflect on our own lives, our own mistakes, and our own potential for growth and transformation. The relationship between Hecate and Melinoë is a reflection of our own relationship with our past selves. We all carry the weight of our past experiences, the memories of our successes and our failures. And like Hecate, we have the power to learn from those experiences, to guide ourselves towards a better future, and to become the best versions of ourselves. But what happens when that past is filled with trauma, with regret, with the knowledge of catastrophic failure? How does one mentor a younger self when haunted by the spectre of what could have been? This is the question at the heart of Hecate's character arc. She is not simply a wise and benevolent mentor. She is a deeply flawed and wounded individual, burdened by the memories of a world lost to darkness. Her strictness, her distance, her seemingly impossible standards are all manifestations of her own pain, her own fear of failure. She pushes Melinoë relentlessly, not because she wants to control her, but because she wants to protect her from the fate that befell her in the original timeline. She knows the dangers that lie ahead, the sacrifices that must be made, and the price that must be paid for victory. And yet, she also knows that Melinoë must forge her own path, that she cannot simply be a puppet of her future self. She must learn to trust her own instincts, to rely on her own strength, and to make her own decisions, even if those decisions lead to mistakes. This is the paradox of self-mentorship. It's about guiding and supporting your younger self, while also allowing them the freedom to grow and to evolve. It's about sharing your wisdom and experience, while also respecting their individuality and their right to make their own choices. Hecate's love for Melinoë is not a simple, sentimental affection. It's a deep, profound, and complex emotion, born out of the shared experience of being the same person across time. It's a love that transcends the boundaries of individuality, a love that recognizes the interconnectedness of all things, and a love that seeks to heal the wounds of the past and to create a better future for all. But is this love enough to overcome the challenges that lie ahead? Can Hecate truly rewrite destiny, or is she doomed to repeat the mistakes of the past? And what role will Zagreus, the protagonist of the first game, play in this unfolding drama? These are the questions that drive the narrative of Hades the Second forward, drawing us deeper into its intricate web of mythology, symbolism, and thematic resonance. And as we continue to explore this shadowed realm, we begin to realize that the story is not just about defeating Chronos, it's about confronting our own inner demons, about embracing our own potential for growth and transformation, and about finding our own path to wholeness. The ancient wisdom embedded within the game's narrative is not simply a matter of historical accuracy or mythological trivia. It's a profound exploration of the human condition, a timeless meditation on the nature of time, identity, and the cyclical nature of existence. And it's a testament to the power of storytelling, to illuminate the darkness, to inspire hope, and to guide us towards a better future. But this exploration of myth and meaning has only just begun. Now that we have a deeper understanding of the mythological foundations upon which Hades II is built, we can begin to analyze how this revelation transforms the game's central themes. Prepare yourself, because the shift from vengeance to growth is more profound than you might imagine, and it will recontextualize everything you thought you knew about this world. Chapter 7. The Transformation of Themes. The revelation of Hecate's true identity, that she is Melinoë's future self, is more than just a plot twist. It's a seismic shift that reverberates through the very core of fundamentally altering the game's thematic landscape. We thought we were embarking on a quest for revenge, a furious daughter seeking retribution for her father's imprisonment. But what if that anger, that burning desire for vengeance, was merely a stepping stone, a necessary, albeit destructive, force on the path to something far greater? Consider the original. Zagreus's journey was, at its heart, a rebellion. A son defying his father, fueled by a desire for freedom and connection. He sought to escape the underworld, to find his mother, Persephone, and to forge his own destiny. Victory in that context meant reaching the surface, defying Hades' will. But subtly subverts this paradigm. Melinoë's initial motivation mirrors Zagreus's. She seeks to confront Chronos, to free her father, and to avenge the house of Hades. Yet, Hecate's presence, and ultimately her revelation, casts a long shadow over this seemingly straightforward quest. Is vengeance truly the answer? Or is there a deeper, more nuanced resolution to be found? The game subtly guides us away from a purely revenge-driven narrative. Melinoë isn't just fighting for her family, she's fighting for the restoration of balance, for the preservation of the night itself. Chronos' tyranny threatens to engulf everything in an endless, stagnant day. This elevates the stakes beyond personal vendetta, transforming the quest into a fight for the very fabric of existence. And Hecate, as Melinoë's future self, embodies this shift. She has already walked the path of vengeance, she has already seen the consequences of unbridled rage. Her strictness, her seemingly impossible standards, aren't simply the demands of a harsh mentor. They are the lessons learned from a future marred by failure, a future where vengeance alone proved insufficient. Think about it. Hecate knows exactly what went wrong in her original timeline. She understands the precise moments where decisions were made that led to Chronos' victory. And yet, she can't simply tell Melinoë what to do. She can't rob her of the journey, of the necessary growth and understanding that only experience can provide. This creates a fascinating tension. Hecate's actions are driven by a desire to prevent the mistakes of her past, but she is also bound by the limitations of time and fate. She can guide, she can nudge, but she cannot force Melinoë down a predetermined path. Melinoë must learn to temper her anger, to harness her power, and to make her own choices. The game's mechanics reinforce this thematic shift. In the original, Zagreus's constant deaths were a source of frustration, but also a testament to his unwavering determination. He would die, learn from his mistakes, and return stronger, fueled by his desire to escape. Death still serves as a learning experience, but it also becomes a reflection of Hecate's temporal manipulations. Each death is a reset, a chance to refine Melinoë's approach, to explore different strategies, and to ultimately unravel the mysteries of the past. It's a constant dance between fate and free will, between Hecate's guidance and Melinoë's own agency. The very act of playing the game, of dying and being reborn, mirrors the cyclical nature of time and the possibility of change. We, as players, are actively participating in the rewriting of destiny, mirroring Hecate's own efforts to avert her tragic fate. But perhaps the most significant transformation lies in the shift from vengeance to compassion. Zagreus's journey was driven by a desire to escape his father's control, to find his own place in the world. Melinoë's journey, while initially fueled by similar motivations, ultimately leads her down a different path. She is not simply seeking to defeat Chronos, she is seeking to understand him, to understand the forces that drove him to usurp the Titans and plunge the cosmos into chaos. She is seeking to heal the wounds of the past, to restore balance, and to create a future where such atrocities are never repeated. This requires a fundamental shift in perspective. It requires Melinoë to move beyond her own anger and resentment, to empathize with those who have caused her pain, and to find a way to break the cycle of violence and retribution. It's a far more challenging and ultimately more rewarding goal than simple vengeance. Hecate, as Melinoë's future self, understands this implicitly. She knows that true victory lies not in defeating Chronos, but in understanding him, in finding a way to heal the wounds of the past and to create a future where compassion and understanding prevail. This is why she pushes Melinoë so hard. She isn't just training her to be a powerful warrior, she's training her to be a compassionate leader, a healer, and a bringer of balance. She's training her to be the kind of person who can break the cycle of violence and create a better future for everyone. And this, ultimately, is the heart of the transformation. It's not just a sequel. It's a reimagining of the original game's themes. It's a story about the power of compassion, the importance of understanding, and the possibility of change. It's a story about breaking the cycle of vengeance and creating a future where everyone can find peace and healing. Think back to the characters we've met so far. Each of them, from the tormented shades to the Olympian gods, carries their own burdens, their own wounds from the past. Melinoë's journey is not just about defeating Chronos, it's about helping these characters find their own healing, their own redemption. She is a catalyst for change, a beacon of hope in a world shrouded in darkness. And as she grows and learns, she inspires those around her to do the same. She shows them that it is possible to move beyond their pain, to forgive those who have wronged them, and to create a better future for themselves. This transformation is subtle but profound. It's not simply about replacing one theme with another. It's about building upon the foundations of the original game and taking the story in a new and unexpected direction. It's about exploring the complexities of human nature and the power of compassion to heal even the deepest wounds. And as we continue to delve deeper into the world of, we begin to see that this transformation is not just a thematic shift, it's a reflection of the game's own evolution. It's a testament to Supergiant Games' willingness to take risks, to challenge expectations, and to create a story that is both familiar and entirely new. So, what began as a quest for vengeance slowly morphs into something far more profound, a journey of self-discovery, compassion, and the ultimate triumph of understanding over hatred. Melinoë's path isn't simply about defeating a titan, it's about healing a fractured world. But to truly grasp the depth of this thematic transformation, we need to examine the game's visual and thematic language. How do symbols, mirrors, and reflections contribute to this evolving narrative? That's the question we'll explore next. I hope you're as amazed by this as I am. If you want to stay updated on more content like this, make sure to subscribe and join our community of curious minds. Trust me, what's coming next will challenge everything you thought you knew. Chapter 8: Symbols, Mirrors, and Reflections. The moon, a constant companion in Melinoë's journey, is far more than just a celestial body in the night sky. It's a mirror, reflecting not only the light of the sun, but also the hidden depths within ourselves. Think about it. Moonlight, ethereal and cool, bathes the crossroads in an otherworldly glow. This isn't merely aesthetic, it's symbolic. It represents clarity, intuition, and the unveiling of secrets, all central to Hecate's role and her connection to Melinoë. But how does this lunar luminescence connect to the broader themes of the game? It's a visual reminder of the cyclical nature of time, of the waxing and waning, the constant ebb and flow. Just as the moon journeys through its phases, so too does Melinoë traverse the underworld, dying and being reborn, learning and growing with each cycle. Consider the weaving imagery that permeates Hades II. Hecate, the master weaver of fate, is constantly manipulating the threads of time. But what are these threads? They are the choices we make, the paths we take, the destinies we forge. Each strand represents a potential future, and Hecate, with her intricate knowledge, attempts to guide Melinoë along the path that leads to the best possible outcome. Have you noticed the prevalence of mirrors throughout the game? They appear in the crossroads, in Erebus, and even in the reflections on the sticks. These aren't just decorative elements, they're visual metaphors for self-reflection. They force Melinoë, and by extension us, to confront our own strengths and weaknesses, our hopes and fears. They challenge us to see ourselves as we truly are, not just as we perceive ourselves to be. And what about the reflections in the water? The Styx, the river of the dead, is a vast, dark mirror reflecting the underworld and all its inhabitants. But it also reflects the past, the memories, the regrets that weigh upon the souls who dwell within its depths. This is where the tragedy of Hecate's situation becomes even more poignant. She sees not only the present, but also the countless failed futures reflected in the murky waters of time. The symbolism of mirrors and reflections extends beyond the visual. It permeates the very core of the narrative. Hecate, as Melinoë's future self, is a reflection of what Melinoë could become. She embodies the wisdom, the power, and the burden of knowledge that Melinoë will eventually inherit. This creates a fascinating dynamic, a constant dialogue between the present and the future, between potential and realization. Think about the act of looking in a mirror, our reflection, but it's not truly us. It's a reversed image, a representation. Similarly, Hecate is not a perfect copy of Melinoë's future self. She's a version shaped by trauma, by loss, by the weight of countless failures. She's a reflection distorted by the passage of time and the harsh realities of fate. The game cleverly uses these symbolic elements to deepen our understanding of the characters and their relationships. The moonlight illuminates the path, the weaving shapes destiny, the mirrors force self-reflection, and the reflections in the water reveal the weight of the past. All of these elements work together to create a rich and layered narrative experience. But let's delve deeper into the specifics of these symbols. Consider the significance of moonlight in Greek mythology. It's often associated with Hecate herself, who is sometimes depicted as a lunar goddess. The moon governs the night, the realm of dreams, secrets, and hidden knowledge. It's a symbol of intuition and psychic ability, qualities that are essential to both Hecate and Melinoë. The game visually reinforces this connection through the use of cool blue tones in areas associated with Hecate and Melinoë. The crossroads, bathed in moonlight, feel serene and contemplative, a stark contrast to the fiery chaos of the underworld. This visual distinction highlights the importance of inner reflection and the pursuit of knowledge in overcoming the challenges that lie ahead. The weaving imagery, as mentioned before, is directly tied to the concept of fate. In Greek mythology, the Fates were the goddesses who controlled the threads of destiny, determining the course of human lives. Hecate's ability to manipulate time and fate makes her, in essence, a weaver of reality. She's not simply accepting the predetermined path, she's actively shaping it, altering the threads to create a different outcome. This raises a profound question. What is the nature of free will? If Hecate can manipulate fate, does that mean our choices are meaningless? Or does it mean that fate itself is not a fixed entity, but rather a fluid and malleable force that can be influenced by our actions? The game doesn't offer easy answers to these questions, but it encourages us to grapple with them, to consider the implications of our own choices and their impact on the world around us. The mirrors, as symbols of self-reflection, are particularly relevant to Melinoë's journey. She's not just fighting to defeat Chronos, she's fighting to understand herself, to come to terms with her own identity and purpose. The mirrors in the crossroads and throughout the underworld serve as constant reminders of this inner struggle. They force her to confront her fears, her doubts, and her insecurities. These reflections also highlight the duality of her nature. She's both a daughter of Hades and a granddaughter of Chronos, a being of both darkness and light. This internal conflict is a central theme of the game, and the mirrors visually represent this struggle, the constant tension between opposing forces within her own soul. The reflections in the Styx, the river of the dead, add another layer of complexity to this symbolism. The Styx is not just a river, it's a repository of memories, a living record of the past. When Melinoë looks into its murky depths, she sees not only the reflections of the underworld but also the echoes of countless lives, the stories of those who have come before her. This connection to the past is particularly significant for Hecate, who carries the weight of countless failed timelines. The Styx, in a way, becomes a mirror reflecting her own past failures, a constant reminder of the consequences of her actions. It's a burden that she carries with her, shaping her interactions with Melinoë and fueling her determination to create a better future. But what about the absence of mirrors? Think about the areas of the game where reflections are scarce or non-existent. What does that signify? It could represent a lack of self-awareness, a disconnect from one's own identity. Or it could symbolize a place where the past is forgotten, where the weight of memories no longer holds sway. The game's use of symbolism is not always overt or explicit. Sometimes it's subtle, almost subliminal. But it's always there, working beneath the surface, adding depth and meaning to the narrative. By paying attention to these symbolic elements, we can gain a deeper understanding of the characters, their motivations, and the overarching themes of the game. Consider the recurring motif of circles and cycles. The moon's phases, the cyclical nature of death and rebirth, the endless repetition of the roguelike gameplay loop, all of these elements reinforce the idea that time is not linear but cyclical. This is particularly relevant to Hecate's story, as she's trapped in a time loop, constantly reliving the same events in an attempt to change the outcome. The game visually represents this cyclical nature through the use of circular patterns and designs. From the swirling patterns on Hecate's robes to the circular layout of the crossroads, these visual cues subtly reinforce the theme of repetition and the cyclical nature of time. But the cycles are not necessarily negative. They also represent the potential for growth and change. Each time Melinoë dies and is reborn, she learns from her mistakes, she becomes stronger, and she gets closer to her goal. The cyclical nature of the gameplay loop mirrors the cyclical nature of life itself, the constant process of learning, growing, and evolving. The game also uses color symbolism to enhance its narrative. The cool blues and purples associated with Hecate and Melinoë contrast sharply with the fiery reds and oranges of the underworld. This visual distinction highlights the difference between the realms of knowledge and chaos, between the pursuit of understanding and the forces of destruction. The use of light and shadow is also significant. Moonlight, as we've discussed, represents clarity and intuition. But shadows represent the unknown, the hidden, the secrets that lie beneath the surface. The interplay between light and shadow creates a sense of mystery and intrigue, drawing us deeper into the game's narrative. Consider the way the game uses sound to reinforce its symbolic themes. The ethereal music that accompanies Melinoë's journey through the crossroads creates a sense of serenity and contemplation. The harsh, discordant sounds of the underworld, on the other hand, reflect the chaos and brutality of that realm. The game's sound design is not just atmospheric, it's an integral part of its storytelling. But what about the symbols that are unique to Hades II? The crossroads, as a central hub, is itself a powerful symbol. It represents the choices we make, the paths we take, and the destinies we forge. It's a place where we can reflect on our past, consider our present, and plan for our future. The various tools and weapons that Melinoë uses throughout her journey are also symbolic. Each weapon represents a different approach to combat, a different way of interacting with the world. The sickle, for example, represents death and rebirth, while the staff represents knowledge and wisdom. Even the characters themselves can be seen as symbols. Hecate represents the burden of knowledge, the weight of the past, and the potential for change. Melinoë represents hope, resilience, and the power of self-discovery. Each character embodies a different aspect of the game's overarching themes. The game's developers have carefully crafted a world that is rich in symbolism, a world where every detail has meaning. By paying attention to these symbolic elements, we can unlock a deeper understanding of the game's narrative and its profound themes. The symbols, mirrors, and reflections in Hades II are not mere decorative elements. They are integral components of the game's storytelling. They deepen our understanding of the characters, their relationships, and the overarching themes of fate, free will, and self-discovery. They challenge us to look beyond the surface, to see the hidden meanings that lie beneath, and to reflect on our own lives and choices. But this exploration of symbolism is far from over. We've only scratched the surface of the deeper meanings hidden within the game's visual and thematic tapestry. Because next, we'll delve into how this revelation surrounding Hecate transforms the game's central themes, shifting the focus from vengeance to something far more profound. Chapter 9: The Meta-Narrative of Rebirth. Have you ever stopped to consider how the very act of playing a video game, repeatedly dying and starting anew, might mirror a deeper truth about the nature of reality itself? In Hades II, the roguelike structure isn't just a game mechanic, it's a reflection of Hecate's manipulation of fate, a cosmic dance of death and rebirth echoing throughout the underworld. Think about it. Each time Melinoë falls in battle, she's not simply restarting a level. She's stepping back into the stream of time, armed with newfound knowledge and experience, ready to confront the challenges ahead with a slightly different approach. This mirrors Hecate's own journey, her countless attempts to alter the course of events, each failure providing valuable insights into the workings of fate. It's a meta-narrative playing out on two levels. You, the player, are caught in a loop of your own making, learning from each run, adapting your strategies, and inching closer to your goal. But within the game, Melinoë is also caught in a loop, guided by Hecate, who is herself trying to break free from the constraints of a predetermined destiny. The game mechanics reinforce this idea in subtle ways. The mirror, a central element in the House of Hades, allows Melinoë to alter her abilities, to respec her build, if you will. This act of reflection and adjustment isn't just about optimizing gameplay, it's about acknowledging the cyclical nature of existence and the potential for change within that cycle. Consider the boons offered by the Olympian gods. Each boon represents a different aspect of their power, a different way to approach the challenges of the underworld. But they also represent different facets of Melinoë herself, different paths she could potentially take. The choices you make as a player, the boons you select, are shaping Melinoë's destiny, guiding her towards a specific outcome. And what of the weapons? Each weapon offers a unique playstyle, a different way to engage with the game's combat. But they also represent different aspects of Melinoë's personality, different ways she can express her power. The Witch's Staff, for example, encourages a more strategic, ranged approach, while the Sister Blades favour a more aggressive, close-quarters style. The game's environments also contribute to this sense of cyclical rebirth. The ever-shifting landscapes of the underworld, the constantly changing layouts of each region, reinforce the idea that nothing is ever truly static, that everything is in a state of flux. Each run through the underworld is a new experience, a fresh challenge, even though the underlying goal remains the same. Think about the enemies you face. They are not simply obstacles to overcome. They are reflections of the forces that oppose Melinoë, the forces that seek to maintain the status quo. Each enemy represents a different aspect of the challenges she must overcome, a different obstacle she must conquer. The bosses in particular embody this idea. Each boss is a formidable opponent, a powerful force that tests Melinoë's abilities to the limit. But they also represent specific aspects of the challenges she faces, specific obstacles she must overcome to achieve her goal. And what about the resources you collect? Nectar, ambrosia, darkness, keys. These are not simply items to be gathered, they are tools that allow Melinoë to grow, to learn, to evolve. Each resource represents a different aspect of her development, a different way she can improve her abilities. The keepsakes you acquire from the various characters you encounter in the underworld also play a crucial role. These keepsakes offer unique benefits, but they also represent the relationships Melinoë forges along her journey. Each keepsake is a reminder of the connections she makes, the allies she gains, the support she receives. Even the dialogue in the game contributes to this sense of cyclical rebirth. The conversations Melinoë has with the other characters in the House of Hades, the interactions she has with the gods and goddesses she encounters in the underworld, are not simply exposition, they are opportunities for growth, for learning, for understanding. Each conversation offers new insights into the world of Hades II, new perspectives on the challenges Melinoë faces, new ways to approach her quest. And as you progress through the game, you'll notice that the dialogue changes, evolves, reflecting the experiences Melinoë has had, the lessons she has learned. The game's narrative structure, with its branching storylines and multiple endings, further reinforces this idea of cyclical rebirth. The choices you make as a player, the paths you take, will ultimately determine the outcome of Melinoë's journey. But even if you fail, even if you reach an ending that is not entirely satisfactory, you can always start anew, armed with newfound knowledge and experience, ready to try again. Consider the significance of the moon, a recurring symbol throughout the game. The moon is associated with cycles, with the ebb and flow of tides, with the changing phases of life. It's a reminder that everything is in constant motion, that nothing is ever truly static. Hecate's connection to the moon further emphasizes this theme. As a goddess of magic and crossroads, she is intimately connected to the cyclical nature of time and fate. She understands that death is not an end, but a transition, a gateway to a new beginning. The game's color palette also contributes to this sense of cyclical rebirth. The use of vibrant colors, particularly the blues and purples associated with magic and the underworld, creates a visually stunning and immersive experience. But it also reinforces the idea that death is not simply a bleak and desolate void, but a vibrant and dynamic realm full of possibilities. The music in Hades II, composed by Darren Korb, is another crucial element in creating this sense of cyclical rebirth. The soundtrack is a blend of traditional Greek instruments and modern electronic sounds, creating a unique and evocative atmosphere. The music ebbs and flows, building to crescendos during intense battles and then receding into quieter moments of reflection. The way the music changes and evolves as you progress through the game further reinforces the idea of cyclical rebirth. The themes become more complex, more nuanced, reflecting the experiences Melinoë has had, the lessons she has learned. But how does Supergiant transform this mechanical repetition into meaningful narrative symbolism? By ensuring that each run is not just a carbon copy of the last. The enemies may be the same, the environments may be familiar, but the choices you make, the boons you select, the weapons you wield will always be different. This creates a sense of agency, a feeling that you are actively shaping Melinoë's destiny, even within the constraints of the roguelike structure. Your persistence, your willingness to keep trying, to keep learning, to keep adapting, becomes an integral part of the story's thematic fabric. The game is not simply about defeating Chronos. It's about understanding the cyclical nature of existence, about accepting the inevitability of death and rebirth, about finding meaning and purpose within that cycle. It's about embracing the journey, not just the destination. Think about the act of gardening, a central element in the House of Hades. The plants you cultivate, the seeds you sow, are not simply decorative. They are symbols of growth, of renewal, of the cyclical nature of life. Each plant represents a different aspect of Melinoë's development, a different way she can nurture her abilities. The act of tending to the garden, of watering the plants, of weeding the soil, is a metaphor for the work you put into shaping your own destiny. It's a reminder that growth requires effort, that it requires patience, that it requires a willingness to nurture and cultivate your potential. The themes of motherhood and family, which are central to the narrative of Hades II, also contribute to the sense of cyclical rebirth. Melinoë's quest to rescue her family, to restore balance to the underworld, is not simply a heroic endeavor, it's a deeply personal journey of self-discovery. Her relationships with her mother, Persephone, and her siblings, Zagreus and others, are crucial to her development. These relationships provide her with support, with guidance, with a sense of belonging. They remind her that she is not alone in her quest, that she has a family who loves and cares for her. The game's ending, or rather its multiple endings, further emphasize this theme of cyclical rebirth. Regardless of the specific outcome, the game's narrative always returns to the theme of renewal, of hope, of the possibility of a better future. Even if Melinoë fails to defeat Chronos, even if she is unable to restore balance to the underworld, the game's narrative suggests that her efforts were not in vain. Her journey, her experiences, her relationships have all contributed to her growth, to her understanding of herself and the world around her. And this is where the brilliance of Hades II truly shines. It takes a genre known for its repetitive nature and transforms it into a powerful metaphor for the cyclical nature of life, death, and rebirth. It reminds us that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges, we have the power to learn, to grow, and to shape our own destinies. It is a reminder that we have the ability to continuously be reborn through our choices, through our actions, through our very persistence. But this intricate dance of death and rebirth, this constant cycle of failure and triumph, leads us to a far deeper question. How does this revelation, this understanding of Hecate's role, change the very themes at the heart of the game? How does it shift the focus from vengeance to something far more profound? That's the journey we'll embark on next as we explore the transformation of themes within the ever-evolving world of Hades II. Chapter 10. Love Across Time and the Meaning of Wholeness. The revelation of Hecate's true identity casts a long shadow, one that stretches across not just the underworld, but across the very fabric of time itself. And within that shadow, we find a story not of vengeance, not of conquest, but of love. A love that transcends the boundaries of self and destiny. Think about it. Hecate, burdened with the memories of a failed future, chooses not to simply rewrite the past, to erase her mistakes with a flick of cosmic power. Instead, she painstakingly guides Melinoë, her younger self, through the treacherous path she once stumbled upon. Isn't that, at its core, an act of profound love? A love born not of romantic desire, but of a desperate yearning to spare oneself, to spare a part of oneself, the pain and anguish of a doomed fate. And where does Zagreus fit into all of this? He, the rebellious son of Hades from the first game, now stands as a spectral guide, a whisper in the darkness, a helping hand reaching across the veil. Some theories suggest he's a key to breaking the cycle, a catalyst for change. But perhaps his true purpose is simpler, yet more profound. Perhaps he's there to remind Melinoë, and by extension Hecate, that even in the darkest depths, even in the face of impossible odds, there is always hope. There is always someone willing to help. His presence, his unwavering support, speaks to a fundamental truth that we are not alone in our struggles. That even when we feel lost and adrift, there are connections that bind us, invisible threads of compassion and understanding that stretch across time and space. He represents the love that Hecate, in her future-burdened state, might have forgotten. A love that isn't about control or manipulation, but about genuine care and selfless assistance. Consider the implications. If Hecate is indeed manipulating time, subtly guiding Melinoë towards a better outcome, then Zagreus's presence is not merely coincidental. It's a piece of the puzzle, a carefully placed element in Hecate's grand design. But it's also something more. It's a testament to the enduring power of connection, a reminder that even the most powerful being cannot, and should not, bear the weight of the world alone. And what about the other characters? The gods of Olympus, the shades of the underworld, the various figures that populate Melinoë's journey. They too play a role in this cosmic drama, each contributing to the tapestry of fate that Hecate is so desperately trying to reweave. They are not merely obstacles or allies, they are reflections of Melinoë's own potential, echoes of the choices she might make, the paths she might tread. Think of the relationships you forge in the game, the bonds you strengthen with each encounter. These aren't just arbitrary interactions, they are vital components of Melinoë's growth, opportunities for her to learn and evolve, to become the person, the goddess, she needs to be to overcome the darkness that lies ahead. They are, in essence, acts of love, both given and received, that shape her destiny in profound ways. But let's delve deeper into this concept of love across time. It's not just about Hecate guiding Melinoë or Zagreus offering support. It's about the interconnectedness of all things, the realization that our actions have consequences that ripple through time, affecting not only ourselves, but also those who came before us and those who will come after. Imagine the weight of that responsibility. To know that your choices, your triumphs, your failures will shape the future of the world, will determine the fate of countless souls. It's a burden that would crush most of us, but it's a burden that Hecate willingly carries, driven by a love for her past self, a desire to create a better future for everyone. And what does it mean to achieve wholeness in this context? It's not simply about defeating Chronos, about restoring balance to the underworld. It's about reconciling the different aspects of oneself, about integrating the past, present, and future into a cohesive whole. It's about accepting our flaws, learning from our mistakes, and embracing the potential for growth and change. Think of Melinoë's journey as a process of self-discovery, a quest to understand not only her own powers, but also her own limitations. She must confront her fears, overcome her doubts, and ultimately forgive herself for the mistakes she has yet to make. It's a journey that requires courage, resilience, and above all, a willingness to embrace the unknown. And how does vengeance factor into this equation? In the first game, Zagreus was driven by a desire for revenge, a burning need to escape his father's control and forge his own destiny. But in Hades II, the focus shifts from vengeance to forgiveness, from retribution to understanding. Melinoë is not simply seeking to punish Chronos for his crimes. She is seeking to understand why he committed those crimes in the first place. She is seeking to break the cycle of violence and hatred that has plagued the underworld for eons. She is seeking to create a future where such atrocities are no longer possible. This shift in focus is crucial. It represents a fundamental change in perspective, a move away from the destructive forces of anger and resentment towards the healing power of compassion and empathy. It's a recognition that true justice is not about inflicting pain, but about preventing it from happening again. Consider Hecate's role in this transformation. She, who once sought vengeance against Chronos, now guides Melinoë towards a more enlightened path. She understands that true victory lies not in defeating one's enemies, but in understanding them, in recognizing their humanity, even in the face of unimaginable cruelty. This doesn't mean that Chronos should be excused for his actions. It simply means that Melinoë must approach the conflict with a different mindset. A mindset that prioritizes understanding and forgiveness over hatred and retribution. It's a difficult path, a path that requires immense strength and compassion, but it's the only path that can truly lead to lasting peace. And what about the cyclical nature of growth and healing? The road-like structure of the game, with its endless cycle of death and rebirth, mirrors the cyclical nature of life itself. We are constantly evolving, constantly learning, constantly making mistakes and trying again. Each death is not an end, but an opportunity for growth. Each failure is a lesson learned. Each setback is a chance to become stronger, more resilient, more compassionate. It's a process that never truly ends, a continuous cycle of self-improvement that shapes us into the people we are meant to be. Think of the boons you collect throughout your journey, the blessings bestowed upon you by the gods. They represent the different aspects of your personality, the various skills and abilities that you develop over time. They are not simply tools to help you defeat your enemies, they are reflections of your own inner potential. And how do these boons relate to the concept of wholeness? They represent the integration of different parts of yourself, the harmonization of opposing forces. They are a reminder that we are all complex beings, capable of both great good and great evil, and that true wholeness lies in embracing all aspects of ourselves, both light and dark. Consider the final confrontation with Chronos. It's not just a battle of strength and skill, it's a battle of wills, a clash of ideologies. It's a test of Melinoë's character, a moment of truth that will determine the fate of the underworld. Will she succumb to the temptation of vengeance, allowing her anger to consume her and drive her to commit acts of violence? Or will she rise above her baser instincts, choosing instead to embrace compassion and forgiveness? The choice is hers, and the consequences will be felt throughout eternity. And what role does Zagreus play in this final act? Does he offer guidance, support, or perhaps even a crucial advantage? Or does he simply stand by and watch, trusting Melinoë to make the right decision? His presence is a constant reminder of the potential for good, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. Ultimately, the ending of Hades II is not about defeating Chronos. It's about breaking the cycle of violence and hatred, about creating a future where such atrocities are no longer possible. It's about achieving wholeness, about reconciling the different aspects of oneself, and about embracing the power of love and forgiveness. It's about understanding that true strength lies not in dominating others, but in lifting them up. It's about recognizing our shared humanity, even in the face of profound differences. It's about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive, to reach their full potential, and to live a life filled with purpose and meaning. And so, Hecate's sacrifice, her willingness to carry the burden of the past, becomes not a symbol of despair, but a testament to the enduring power of hope. It's a reminder that even in the face of impossible odds, even when the darkness seems overwhelming, there is always the potential for change, the possibility of a brighter future. But what if the cycles are not truly broken? What if the victory is only temporary, a brief respite before the darkness returns. What if Hecate's efforts are ultimately futile, doomed to be repeated again and again throughout eternity? These are the questions that linger in the air, the doubts that whisper in the shadows. They are a reminder that the struggle for justice and peace is never truly over, that the forces of darkness are always lurking, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Yet, even in the face of such uncertainty, there is reason to hope. For as long as there are those who are willing to fight for what is right, as long as there are those who are willing to embrace love and forgiveness, there is always the possibility of a better future. And so the story of Hades II ends not with a definitive conclusion. The secret is this: Hecate, the immortal witch who has been training Melinoë for her mission of vengeance, is actually Melinoë herself. An earlier version from a previous timeline who lived, fought, failed, and was cast back through time to watch over her own younger soul. She is literally trying to guide herself through the same pain she once endured, hoping that this time things might be different. But before you dismiss this as simple science fiction wrapped in mythological clothing, understand that this revelation transforms everything. It explains why Hecate's teaching methods feel so personal, so intimate, so filled with both love and barely contained anguish. It explains why she pushes Melinoë so hard, why she seems to know exactly what her student needs to hear, and why her guidance feels less like instruction and more like confession. This secret also explains something else entirely. The world of Hades, too, isn't quite the same as the world of the original Hades. Characters appear different, relationships have shifted, and the very fabric of reality seems altered. That's because it is altered. When Hecate manipulated the threads of fate to create this new timeline, she didn't just give herself another chance. She rewrote the entire world, spinning a new reality from the remnants of the old one. The fates themselves acknowledge this when they mention that Hecate pulled some strings. This isn't metaphorical. She literally reached into the tapestry of destiny and rewove it, creating a universe where Melinoë could exist and where the mistakes of the past might be corrected.